really didn't enjoy this one compared to compared to the first film. It's got a lot more depth into it. All right, welcome to the podcast. Today I am joined by produced screenwriter Katie Cross. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, of course.
Today we're going to talk about the new Hellraiser on Hulu. I got to tell you, I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I when I started watching it though, I admit I was distracted by other things, but when I actually sat down and watched it in its entirety, like with no distractions, I was like, this is actually pretty good.
It is easy to get lost on it when one watching a film with all like Instagram and all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to get distracted. But no, I actually really did enjoy this one compared to compared to the first film. It's got a lot more depth into it. I want to hit you with this log line. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So the Hulu original Hellraiser, a take on Clive Barker's 1987 horror classic where a young woman struggling with addiction comes into possession of an ancient puzzle box, unaware that its purpose is to summon the Cenobites. All right, so that's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
But what I do like what they mention in this log line is really they hit upon the theme of the story, which is addiction.
Yeah.
Which I actually really thought was great compared to the 87 film, which was really more about that whole pleasure and pain kind of uh uh I hate to say it this way, but it's like the BDSM type of
Yeah.
feeling it was going for. This was more about a woman struggling with the addiction. She finds the box, and the box itself is its own type of addiction.
Not only that, but her boyfriend, I feel like, is the personification of her addiction as well.
No,
Because like
I think you're right.
she seeks comfort in him, but all he does is he manipulates her and he tricks her
Yeah.
into, furthering that need for more.
Right. And the heart plot of this is really it's really her brother. And so you've got two ends of that spectrum there. If we're looking at kind of like the subplots of her relationship with her boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
Which she runs to him, they're drinking, they're doing drugs, even though she's in recovery. And supposedly he's in recovery, met her in a 12-step program. Then you
Right.
have that juxtaposed with her brother who's taking care of her, letting him stay with her, encouraging her to find treatment and to not fall down that wormhole. And I really think that is really, they play off of each other so well.
They do. And even her brother's boyfriend, like I
Yeah.
thought, I don't know, something about him was just, he was just so warm. Something about him really connected me to him, and I liked their relationship together, Riley's and Colin's relationship.
I mean, it all felt really authentic. It's really easy in these films to take drug addiction and, turn the people who are addicted into monsters or into stereotypes and
Yeah.
cliches. And it seems like they really did try to ground this. And I thought that was great. Even with, like you said, her boyfriend, her brother's boyfriend, he's coming from uh an empathetic place with her. He's trying to give her space. He
Yeah.
doesn't want her to leave. He understands they're fighting. So I think bringing that all together and making these characters, quote, feel real really adds to the atmosphere when things start going crazy with the Cenobites.
Oh my gosh, that first kill.
Oh, it's insane. So here, let's get into it. So she gets the puzzle box, and we get introduced to the puzzle box early on. So we get her promise of the premise right away, which is great. So we're not lingering, we're not waiting. So you're right. This is a Hellraiser movie. This is great. And we start to get more of the lore with the different variations of the puzzle box, which I think is great. Um, as we start to learn about the puzzle box and that each different variation um, really reflects one of the quote rewards
Yeah. I like how that
at the
reflects.
end, but even visual, like even visually showing that. I know one of them was about, I think, laudament or something like that, and it's about lovers, and it looks like two ends of the box joining together in the middle, and I thought that's very interesting.
Yes.
Um, I don't think I said it right. How do you say it?
Uh, I don't know how to say it right. Ladarin? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
I
It's
have no
a
idea, but
whatever.
because they talked about the other ones a lot more. So
Yeah. And we see the main antagonist at that point sacrifice, and then we see the Leviathan start to form, which was really cool. Um, I was not expecting her brother to bite it that early on.
yeah, yeah, that kind of it did throw me for a loop, and it kind of I'll be honest, I felt less for him because I didn't see as much of him.
Hmm.
So I just kind of forgot about him. I'm like, yeah, that's part of why she's trying to get back. She's trying to get her brother back, but
Right,
I don't know. I was just it kind of took away a little bit for me. Her her connection to him.
right. Well, the thing is their connection together is argumentative, right? I mean, we see
Yeah.
them fighting a lot. We're not seeing any tender moments with them.
Right. Right.
They're frustrated, so I could see where you're coming from with that. But at the same time, I think again that comes to the authenticity of, he's frustrated because she's an addict and he's trying to help her, but she's not
Yeah.
trying to help herself, and that is reflected in his kill when she pops pills, lays down in the playground, right, and starts
Yeah.
to see the Cenobites and solves the box, and then he cuts himself trying to help her, which is a visual subtext of anyone who's had family or loved ones dealing with addiction. When you're trying to help someone and they don't want to be helped, you are being wounded in certain ways, and so seeing that
Ooh.
played
Yeah. That's
crazy,
really
right?
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seeing that played visually through the box, is fantastic. I mean, it's mind-blowing, and then seeing how it ultimately it ends his life. Thank God was off screen because I really didn't wanna see him as a character die because I really did it I really did like his character, but, moving on beyond that, we'll talk about one of those kills. Um,
Nora, I thought was
that was intense.
oh
So in the old movie, it was all about, like I said, the kind of the BDSM feeling to it of pleasure and pain. What I like the twist here is when we get the reveal with Pinhead, quote, the Hell Priest. It isn't about pleasure and pain. It's about sensation. And
mhm.
I thought that was a really interesting twist because when you start talking about sensation, now we have a whole scale of experiences,
Yeah.
and the way that Jamie Clayton delivers that line, with almost like a calm religious fervor, I thought was fascinating and terrifying because, like, I don't wanna know what this person wants to what kind of sensations they want me to experience, and, oh, and that poor thing having to go through it and praying, but it being ultimately fruitless because she's victim to the box.
Yeah. It was intense. And then when they said this was jumping forward, but when they said all you can do is search for greater thresholds, and then like they kind of compared, I think they compared heaven to you kind of you sort of stop feeling
Right.
things, you stop searching for that
Yeah.
thing that keeps you going.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because there was a like a self-help book I read one time that was talking about the reason why we keep going is because we're never satisfied. That's what
Right.
keeps our drive. And I just think it's kind of interesting seeing it from this extreme perspective.
No, I think that's really a great observation. I've studied a lot of different religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, um, Christianity, Taoism, and I've really I've done dug deep into this. One thing I've always taken away is, um, if we're going to get into religion for a second, is there's different planes of existence. So you could say like heaven is a higher plane of existence where you've kind of got everything figured out and everything is just it's good,
Chill.
everything's working out.
Yeah.
Well, it's boring,
Yeah.
right? And then you can go the opposite way if you want to go all the way down to the depths, then it's torturous, right? And life, both sides crave life because life is school. You continue learning and you get to experience both. You get to experience the
Yeah.
highs of heaven. You get to experience the lows of the depths. And so I think that's really it is an interesting argument that the hell priest has to make there about, well, heaven's boring. Here
Yeah.
we get to enjoy sensation and we're going to take you to the limits, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
But it is a really interesting argument. And so you can see where that reflects with the main antagonist. I think his name was Voight or something like that,
Yes.
um,
Roland Voigt.
where he chose the reward of whatever it was called, but it was of sensation.
Liminal. Yeah, he chose liminal.
He chose liminal, so it was of sensation. So where he was, because he had everything he wanted in life
Yeah.
except for pleasure, and we got to learn about that through the environment of his character, where the opening person who's going to solve the box is walking through and seeing all of this hedonistic stuff within Voight's castle. So now you're realizing like that's who this guy is, right? He
Yeah.
wants to experience sensation and pleasure. So of course he chooses the one that's going to do that, except it does it in a horrific way, which I thought was so visually stunning.
Yeah. And it's cool because it's kind of like, the genie in the bottle, and you
Oh
be
yeah.
careful what you wish for. You think you're getting one thing and you end up with something completely different because it's not specific.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So I mean, it's definitely a warning. So Riley starts to pick up on this thing as cursed, right? So we get to the midpoint, where the death and return scene. She's got the box. She's gonna get rid of the box. We're like, yes, throw that thing in the water. I'm assuming in my mind it's gonna magically reappear next to her, right?
Right.
But the hell priest says, I will not be denied, and triggers the box and she gets cut. And she's like, your blood is ours now. Choose. I was like, oh man, that's so delicious. That's such a great twist.
Yeah, that was great. And yeah, because like she kind of was gonna escape by without having to make that choice. And now she's
Yeah.
forced to.
Yep, exactly. And that's what happens in that midpoint scene, right? Those decisions, those sacrifices are thrust upon the main character. They don't get to make the choice until later in the resurrection plot point. So
Yeah.
here it was thrust upon her literally, because the hell priest is this crazy bad. So we skip forward. I want to get your take on the twist of the house, because I thought visually the house was fantastic. We haven't seen anything like that really in the Hellraiser franchise, and the surprise that Voight is still alive.
Yeah. Well, I like how he builds this cage within the house, around the house, that kind of resembles, I mean, the lament figure.
Yeah,
Like
the
it's
cube
the
itself.
cube itself. And I like how like when there are deaths, the thing shape shifts, it turns just like the cube.
Yeah,
I thought that
that's
was really
fascinating.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that the cube itself is fed by blood and moves
Yeah.
on its own is so creepy. But I like the twist that things are starting to slow down. You're going, okay, what's going to happen here? Is she going to try and stab somebody else? And then he shows up and stabs one of her friends. You're like, oh man, things are getting
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that the reveal is that the house itself is a cage for the Cenobites,
Yeah.
so that Voight can get
And
his
get
reward.
yeah.
I love that. It's like I'm saying, this is intelligent filmmaking, because we're watching this and we're like, oh, we're only going to see kind of like one ending, but we really get to see like three different endings, because he had the initial one where it's thrust into his chest and he's in constant pain, right? So
Mhm.
that was his first reward, right?
Yeah.
And so then he argues with Pinhead, and Pinhead's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, well, I got something in mind for you." So now we get to see another reward, right?
Right.
Which was the
I was
Leviathan.
surprised by that. I guess you kind of don't know the rules of the world that
Right.
you're in, that you're watching. And sometimes those rules can shift or change depending on new information. And I didn't realize that. I mean, I haven't admittedly watched every single Hellraiser, but
Yeah.
I watched the first one, and I didn't know that you could choose another reward if you go through it again.
So I don't think the I mean, I'm going back here, but the original Hellraiser didn't have multiple rewards and
No,
multiple
not like
boxes or anything like
no.
that. So this is really kind of taking the lore in a new direction. I like the idea of having Voight argue and then being able to see another version of what can happen if you get the
Right.
reward. But if we look at it from Pinhead's point of view for a minute, if you can just drive spikes into your mind, um, they had lost a Cenobite, right? So
Yeah.
Pinhead, they are a hell priest, and the Cenobites work for Pinhead essentially. So
Yeah.
uh, they would be like the head of the order, and they
Right.
lost a Cenobite because Riley, clever enough, stabbed one of the Cenobites and was destroyed, right?
Mhm.
So Pinhead's down a man essentially. So at the end, right, like the post teaser, post credit scene, you see Voight inside the Leviathan, you hear the dialogue from Pinhead, and then you see him being turned into a Cenobite, and he's being turned into the Cenobite that was killed. So the Cenobite
Um,
that was killed, I think they used to call it the Chatterer. It was the teeth,
yeah.
right? That's when she killed. And if you look at what's happening to him, his skin is being flayed in a way that his skin across his mouth is being ripped open again. So he's becoming the one
Uh,
that Pinhead lost. So for Pinhead, yeah, sure, let's give you that one. I gotta
yeah.
replenish the ranks.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. But I really did love the twist of Riley's boyfriend having to work for Voight. You want a really strong twist. I thought the twist of Voight being alive was already great, and
Yeah.
then throwing in the fact that her boyfriend is a total traitor was fantastic.
I watched it first, and then now knowing that he was a traitor, rewatched it to see if there were like any little things I could
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
up on. And I was trying to figure out when Nora gets caught within the walls, if he purposely isn't flipping
Oh
the
man,
right
that's a
switch.
really good point.
I was trying to figure that out because it's kind of a little bit ambiguous. You can't really
Oh,
see
I
kind of
think you're
what he's
right.
doing. But yeah.
Oh, that's a really great point. I love that when you have little moments like that. Another moment though is when she's like, "Here, touch this box." He's like, "Oh no, I'm not.
No,
I'm
it's just
good."
like, wait a second, you actually believe me? What's
Yeah,
going on here? So it's like
exactly.
the
No,
first
I think that's
little inkling that maybe something's up.
no, yeah, really good twist on that. So when we get to the resurrection scene, and her friend, her brother's boyfriend, is getting cut up by that one Cenobite, which was just with the barbed wire was crazy.
Oh, I thought he was done
I know.
for.
I was like, oh man, but then she stabs her boyfriend, and you're like, yep, that's the
Yeah.
way to do it. So
Yep.
I think we all kind of saw that coming.
Wait,
Um,
real quick though, when
yeah.
she stabs her boyfriend, do you think that he purposely runs towards it to sacrifice himself, or do you think she actually, or do you think it's a combination?
No, I think
Because
that
he
dude.
kind of
I
runs
think
towards
that
it a little bit.
I think well, he was trying to grab it from her. I
Well, he
think that
was, but I don't
I
know.
can't give him that much. I can't give him that much credit. That
You
guy, that guy, that
can't.
guy was selfish. He was in it. He was in it for the money, and he was willing to throw everybody away. And his character's not growing. Right, her character is growing.
Yeah,
She is learning through this arc what her addiction has done, the
yeah,
ramifications of her addiction. So thematically, it's working. His subplot is not about growth. His
yeah,
subplot is about where it takes you if you don't change, and it takes you to selling out everybody
yeah,
including the ones you love. And what happens, in this film, if you're a drug addict and you do that, is you get your skin flayed open by Wire, which is crazy.
That's what
So
happens.
so there's a lot going on there. So that's my opinion. Could he have leapt onto the blade? Sure.
You
But
know how it is, though. I like to see the good in everybody.
yeah, you are a good person. With Hellraiser, with the end, we get the revelation that she doesn't choose to bring her brother back. She chooses, what was the configuration that she chose?
She chooses lament, which is life, which is essentially escape from them, but she
Yeah.
has to live with the regret of everything that she's done and she's chosen and
I, I
every
I think that works for me. Uh
yeah.
I
I'd choose that all
I'd be
day.
like, which one lets me walk out of here? Normal. I'm gonna take that one. I would be so boring in a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah.
So so I really enjoyed it. Not everybody dies, thank God. But uh I kind of I don't want to see another one. Like for me, they did such a great job on this.
There's probably gonna be another
Oh,
one.
I'm sure because this thing is a huge hit.
Yeah.
But using the house as a trap for the Cenobites, having the Voight character, using it thematically around addiction as a for
That
the
was
for the box.
so smart. So
Yeah,
smart.
instead of it just being about pleasure and pain.
Yeah.
I just thought, yeah, it's just such intelligent filmmaking, really nailed it. I just don't need to see another one because I feel like this was so good. I hate to see another one come out and they just phone it in. But I
Yeah.
want I want to hear from our listeners. So if you have a question, go ahead or a comment, go ahead and bump in and we want to hear from you. Um, but I was very surprisingly pleased with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it leaves you oddly satisfied.
Yeah, it's a really good Halloween movie.
Yes.
And surprisingly, the budget was quite good. Think
Yeah.
seeing like a Hulu original, I'm like, oh, there's not gonna be a lot of budgeters, but no, it was solid.
Well, I was really surprised at how much it seemed like it was mostly practical effect. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of, CGI or whatever, but it was, I don't know, just
Right. And the
really,
way and the way that they show the Cenobites, what I really liked compared to like the classic is the Cenobites all looked raw. Like
yeah,
Pinhead looked like they were still recovering from having.
slimy and
Yeah, and like
yeah.
the edges of the wounds were pinkish, so they looked like they were still fresh and they still hurt, which I thought, wow, like visually s- perfect.
Yeah.
So Reset, speaking of a sequel, where could you see a sequel going?
Oh,
Um, so I've done some digging, and I guess um it was a Clive Barker wrote a Hellraiser novel about Pinhead and Pinhead's desire for power and control. And so some people want to see that as the film where it's Pinhead trying to, take over hell or something.
do you think it's going to be like a power struggle between Pinhead and Voight?
I think it'd probably be if they did something like that, it'd probably be a power struggle between Pinhead and whoever rules hell. Maybe it's the Leviathan
Leviathan?
or whatever. But I don't know if I want to see that as a film because
Yeah.
is that Hellraiser? That I mean, what we know of as
Yeah.
Hellraiser is you find the box, you solve the box, and then you
Right.
realize I should have left the box alone.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that could be a future, especially with I mean Jamie Clayton's um portrayal of Pinhead was fantastic. So
Yeah.
I know people are going to want to see her in the
Or
role more, which she's an amazing actor. I don't know. Have you ever seen a show called Sense 8?
no, I haven't. So I was looking her up because you mentioned that you'd seen her before, and I was trying to figure
Yeah.
out from what. So I haven't.
So she was in the show called Sense 8, which was just fantastic. I want to say it was by the Wachowski. It's a Netflix original. It got like 2 seasons and then they canceled it. And then fans screamed and they made a movie.
Oh,
And Jamie Clayton was in it. And easily for me, best part of the show, just brought a lot of heart. and her performance was fantastic. And when I really enjoy an actor, I always go like, man, I hope they get more work. And so
Mhm.
when I saw that they cast her as Hellraiser, I was like really excited because I wanted to see what she brought to it, and she brought that kind of reverence that is original and different from the prior incarnation. So that's it. All right. Well, Katie, thank you for joining me for this film analysis. I want to
Yeah.
thank everybody in the audience. Reese, thank you for your question, and we will see you on the next one.